Welcome to the Codeplay Culture Podcast, where we discuss tech, gaming, health, and the world around us.
It was the first time for everything, but you got to start somewhere. I'm sure everyone's doing this by now, so it might as well do it before people are like, hey, why aren't you doing this? Like, oh, that's the old social media from that era that doesn't exist. It's like, oh, you don't podcast? It's like podcasts were so old school.
Right.
But so welcome everyone. This is episode number 1 of the Codeplay Culture Podcast. Logan and Rui.
Yep.
This episode is less code, more impact. And basically what we wanted to talk about today is just kind of going through minimalism in terms of technical debt, code bases, writing things once, and maybe Rui, you can kick it off a little bit with what's been some positive experience in having less or more, or vice versa.
Well, positive in having more, I don't think there's positive in having more. My personal opinion, I think more is just too much and it gets very confusing. But by that, with the same token, that could be something we could talk about and dive into further. So, is more code better? That depends on the situation. Personally, I think it's terrible. But for somebody who's not really, let's say, a coder or a forward-thinking developer, it could be an aid. If you really think about it, whole code base could be something that's, some kind of like, I don't know, could be some kind
manual.
Yeah, like exactly like a manual for a crappy developer. I'm sorry, I take that back.
It's like the onboarding is going through the code.
Right, exactly. But ultimately, you want to move yourself forward into that space where you're writing less and more efficient. It could be the same code base, but condensed. The smaller it gets, unlike some things, the smaller code gets, the better it is.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like a lot of the different companies and clients, like, can we both work with, and correct me if I'm wrong, if it's different in your experience. However, in my experience, the clients that I'm working with, they're really excited about adding, right?
Right.
Especially very new, trendy, up and coming applications. There's not really like a flavor I'm seeing for. Can we take a day to refactor? And the goal of that would be to reduce, let's say, 100 lines of code. That would be the Jira story or the Azure DevOps ticket or whatever. Are you seeing that at all? Where, they're like, hey, this is very important that we feel like you got to spend this time cleaning it.
Right. No, I have not seen that. And from a business standpoint, I don't know if it makes fiscal sense to them to be like, all right, you guys take like a week to, refactor this code to make it more efficient in a way that we're not going to see a profit from. It may not be the best thing for them fiscally, but as from our point of view, it's the right thing to do, right? And we have to find that balance, which is difficult.
I wonder if it's because maybe, and I guess I'm just generalizing, but maybe developers in general aren't communicating the benefits of that to the business and senior management and leadership. In my opinion, what I'm seeing is a lot of these clients won't have the appetite for that. However, when it gets to the point where we're having a scaling issue, where we can't actually put features in as fast as we want to, because the code base is so bloated, there seems to be frustration there. And that to me screams, okay, if you just listen to us from the get-go of, I'm saying us as in, this hypothetical, metaphorical developer trying to petition management for, code cleansing. And, because if you keep on building like a speedboat into Titanic, the Titanic can't turn on a dime. It's going to hit an iceberg.
Absolutely. Right? Yeah, no, that makes total sense. Maybe it falls on our shoulders to to convince them and show them the right way. But does that typically end in success? Are we? I mean, from my experience, it's a futile attempt, right? I feel like you
Mhm.
need a buffer in between. As a developer, we can't just go to the business and say, "Well, I need to refactor, this code, and this is what's going to happen long term. It'll save you a ton of time creating modules or programs." But will they accept it? I don't know if they will accept that from a developer. I mean, my
Mhm.
experience tells me not, but
Mhm.
I don't know. What do you think?
I would agree. It's almost worth not, in most cases, in my opinion, not worth pursuing.
Hmm.
Letting the business know that, hey, we're going to refactor this. It's almost better if you have a team of developers that you're working with. You kind of pull them aside independently and suggest that, hey, let's spend an hour refactoring,
Right.
and you can put it in your next PR for the next feature.
Hmm.
However, it wouldn't be a dedicated pull request for data cleansing.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, that's good. I think that's good. Ultimately, it does make sense for sure. I think right off the bat, that is the right approach, is to put everything to a manageable state,
Mhm.
um, and a condensed and more, readable and refactorable, if that's even a word, state,
Mhm.
where any developer can pick it up and look at it and say, well, these guys did an amazing job, and just carry on that torch. Um, yeah, I think that's great for sure. Yeah. But in terms of writing cleaner code, there are a ton of options out there. And I think there's no excuse for writing spaghetti code with the amount of, knowledge and resources we have. Right.
Right. I wonder if you just upload your code, chat GPT, and say, hey, this is what I'm working with. Can you just give me back like a one liner?
Yeah.
And be like, okay, here's some obscure exe that we compiled this down to, and now it's a one liner. It's like that's like the lazy approach chat GPT
Yeah.
takes. That brings up an interesting idea is the and I just thought of this now. I don't know if it exists. I'm sure it could.
Hmm.
Is how when people do pull requests, you see a plus lines and minus lines
Right.
per file, right? And I believe you see an overall, meaning how many lines were added.
Right.
What about the whole mentality or methodology of that would be a cultural practice adopted by a business to say, okay, we have a net neutral PR policy,
Hmm.
meaning that if there is a PR, there will be um, zero lines committed netted out.
Right.
So if you've committed 100 lines of code
Hmm.
and you hit that PR, it'll say plus 100, and the dev lead comes back and says, I'm going to need to see a minus 100 lines.
Right.
And then you push, commit to that. You were able to refactor a couple functions, maybe just get rid of a lot of white space. But if we're getting to the point now, as culturally as a business, and if we were doing that, let's say, if we're finding it really, really hard to do that
Hmm.
because we've all refactored the heck out of everything.
Yeah.
Like that seems to be like a good place,
Yeah.
right? Like I tried, like I scoured the code base. I
Right.
spent, let's say, 30 minutes trying to refactor things. I only was able to shave 2 lines off of it.
Hmm.
Maybe as part of the PR process of a net neutral line check-in.
Yeah.
It could be like audacious. However, if it's a requirement, and you could even put something in the pipeline build process for the PR that
Yeah.
says, "Hey, it won't be able to be pushed, even if it's approved, unless it's net neutral."
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's
What
a
do you
good
think?
idea. No, I think that's a really good idea. Um, we should put that into practice at some point.
Mm, yeah, exactly. It's funny when we talk about like the minimalism. It's always a pipe dream, right?
For
It's
sure.
like
Yeah.
oh yeah, we should really refactor,
Well,
and
everything
then you get
starts with a dream, man. That's the way it works,
yeah,
right?
that's
It's
very true.
a good sentiment. That's for sure.
Uh, it is Valentine's Day right now, and
Is it?
I
Yes, it is.
yes. Did you remember?
Of
Of course you
course. Of
did.
course, I did.
The romantic. So I woke up at 2 a.m. this morning, went to bed at midnight.
Mhm.
And this morning, um, wife gives Valentine's Day to the gifts to the kids. And then that's when I realized it was Valentine's Day. And then the kids looked at me and they said, um, did did you get us something too, Dad? And Shh. I'm like, of course I
Yeah,
did. I was like,
exactly. Yeah.
I was not able to. I'm not sure how I was that witty at that point on that little sleep. And then Megan, of course, is such an age. She says, well, everything from me, kiddos, is also from Dad. And then the kiddos were like, thank you, and they hugged me
Nice.
after obviously hugging her. But so she saved the situation, and but yeah, it's like the lack of sleep will make your minimalism of code maximalism in like bugs,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. No,
It's
minimalism when it comes to sleep is not a good thing. No. Code,
yeah,
yes. Not sleep. You need your sleep, man.
yeah,
We all need our sleep.
yeah.
But
What's your yeah, kind of like a derailment a little bit,
yeah.
but what time do you go to bed and what time do you wake up, like on average
Yeah, so
throughout
on
the week?
average like midnight till like 6:30 or 7 o'clock. 6:30 I think is the cutoff. That's when I wake up. My body just naturally wakes itself up. But it's not many hours. It's about 6, 7 hours.
And when's your last um, cup of coffee or any caffeine throughout the day or any chocolate?
I don't eat chocolate typically, but caffeine, let's say my last cup would be around 5, 6,
Yeah,
sometimes 4, but I try not to drink it obviously in the evening or closer to bedtime, right?
yeah,
But
fair enough.
it doesn't really keep me up. Honestly, I
Mm,
can fall asleep with a cup of coffee.
yeah, that's
I'm
when
asleep right
I
now.
believe I'm asleep too. uh, yeah, yeah, it's like you're caffeine adapted.
Yeah.
Um, um, Megan sent me something funny, not funny, it is interesting the other day. It's ever when you're falling asleep
Hmm.
and um, you get these little like shocks or like tremors or little kicks or
Yeah.
like little leg movements. Apparently, what that is, um, she sent a video of someone explaining it. Some qualified person,
Hmm.
I'm assuming. That was it's your body is going to sleep before your brain is. So what
Mm.
your brain does is it sends a an electrical current to that to stop it
Right.
from shutting down, which is kind of crazy to think about. Your body is falling asleep faster than your brain.
Yeah. Yeah, that is kind of
So
nuts.
you would think that like you had a very active day,
Yeah.
right? And where the opposite might be true, where your body is like awake,
Yeah.
but your brain dead.
Right.
But anyhow,
Yeah, man. So
I
anyways, back to our code talk.
yeah. Mm,
Let's we went down rabbit hole here.
yeah.
So what can we do to make our code more efficient on a daily? So let's say daily basis, starting from today. How can we make it better? What can we do first? I think first and foremost, we have to mentally tell ourselves we're gonna have a good day today. I think
That you always start
I
with
think it
that.
all starts mentally,
Yeah, yeah,
or at that
yeah,
cerebral level. We have
yeah.
to say we're gonna have a good day today, and then
Mhm.
of course let everything kind of fall into place and just do things proper. Set enough time when you're developing something to write the code clean and not rush. That's the key. Like, don't rush it. Write it clean. Um, use structures. Use structures that exist. Use code that exists. That's obviously optimized and written better than what you can write. Um, just stuff like that. Like, don't rewrite the wheel, as they say, and
Mhm.
obviously don't repeat yourself. That old programming acronym,
Yep,
dry. Yeah.
yeah. And there's like also solid and all of these other.
Yeah. What does solid stand for? I can't remember.
I think I have to look it up. I think it's like single use principle or something like that.
Mhm.
It's I think it's the whole duality. I might have to like make a note to add a correction to the next note or show if I'm saying this wrong. But I
Mhm.
think it's the whole loosely coupled versus tightly bound,
Ah,
right?
okay,
So
okay.
so but then there's I think solid is like the single. There's like a it's an acronym of, each letter is a word, like
Right.
single use, and then it goes through. But there's been like on a lot of the .NET Rocks podcast, they had a
Mhm.
bunch of people on there saying that, well, like when Solid came out, like that was back when, code was in a very different place than it is
Right.
now. However, they've been bringing that methodology along for the ride, almost like it was, stone tablets
Yeah.
that were unchanging, right? And so some people are kind of like, there's more modern, I guess, ways of thinking about, um, you know, that kind of, you know, code reuse and
Mhm.
not breaking things. It's and then the single use thing is like you can get hosed either way. I find where if you have everything using, let's say, the same objects,
Yeah.
then if you make a change somewhere,
Mhm.
then it breaks everything,
Yeah.
right? Or if you have the opposite, where let's say every page on a website has its own, like DTO or some kind of object or class,
Yeah.
then you make a change to that page or that model or DTO, it will essentially only break there.
Right. Right.
Now that will have way more code, right?
For sure.
So
Yeah.
you have like huge amount of code because of um, and then there's this whole thing of, okay, well, we don't want to break everything every time we make a change,
Mhm.
but we don't want to have tons of code.
Right.
Like, what would be the middle path through that? And for me, and personally, in the past year, it's really been source code generators,
Yeah.
because with those, um, and for those that don't know, Roslyn C Sharp source code generators. Roslyn is I guess the open source underlying engine in Visual Studio, and you can tap into a lot of stuff and commit PRs to it and all that, as far as I'm aware. And so you can imagine, like, let's say, for example, very simply, you have a table like in Entity Framework Core or something like that,
Mhm.
and it's like a user table,
Yeah.
conceptually easy to think about. And then let's say you wanted to make a DTO, right?
Mhm.
And imagine you could just add a data annotation to that user domain object, and it would just automatically create the user DTO. Now, in this example, it would take every column from the table and just make a DTO. So what's the point of the DTO?
Right.
But it's just a brief example of like, hey, we don't have to keep, uh, the like, we don't have to write this by hand.
Right.
And
Right.
then so every time you'd add that annotation, it would just make new files.
Yeah.
So I really feel like with getting back to the minimalism and the business, there's, in my opinion, there's no appetite for refactoring or reduction in code.
Yeah.
However, and in the amount of code, or the net neutral thing, is probably like a pipe dream as well,
Mhm.
right? So, assume that we're going to add, like, globally or whatever it is, like, trillions of lines of code over the next X amount of years, right?
Yeah.
Like, so it would be nice to like ramp up like crazy and have a lot of the code generation do that for you, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it's nice when it's organized, right? It's nice when you have all proper classes, all that stuff,
Yeah.
but do you really want to type that out by hand?
No, of course not. Of course not. And things like that can only be done initially at a planning phase of a new software. But yeah, retrofitting stuff like that's incredibly difficult, right? Going back and changing code is just time consuming, and it's, budget constraints, and there are all kinds of factors, right? But for sure, yeah, you're absolutely right. Having code generators is probably the way of the future, to be honest. It's that step that we all need to take to kind of write that manageable, concise, just, bite-sized code for not just us, for future developers, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
One thing I do like about source code generators in general is that if you have like a certain, I feel like a lot of developers, they have this want to have like perfect code. I would say majority of them probably like to have their code super clean
Right.
and it look nice, right? Because if you love what you do, you probably like, okay, that looks good to me. I love this. Like, if you love what you wrote and it looks cool and it's organized and you have the time to keep it clean,
Hmm.
then with source code generators, you can like ensure that the outputted code is like perfect. No
Yeah.
like extra white space, any of that stuff.
Right.
So why send a human to do the job of a robot kind of thing,
Right.
right?
Right.
But if we can think about it, then we can just have the, chat GPT, source code generators, all this stuff do a lot of that for us.
Yeah. I know I get this like this pleasure when I'm formatting my code. When you kind of
Mm,
develop something and you get it to work, you spend
yep.
hours, maybe days, possibly weeks on
Mm,
getting some process to work and it finally works. You're ecstatic, you're super happy. You haven't formatted it, but you spend the next hour happily formatting that because it just works and you're just so happy formatting it. Just I'll just indent this. It just feels so good.
so
But
true.
I just love that feeling.
It's funny. That is so true. I never even like thought about like brought that to the forefront with like, when you shine light on something,
Yeah.
the light of awareness. I'm like, listen, I spent 6 hours slaving over this and it's a mess, right? Like everything's everywhere,
Yeah.
right? And you're like, I earned, I earned the ability to clean this up now. But
Exactly.
it's so weird because it'll never be like that for like a meal or like cooking or something. Like if I cooked a big meal, and like it was amazing. I took like 2 hours. Like I love cooking,
Yeah.
and then we ate as a family, and then everyone's around the table looking at each other like, who's going to clean up, right?
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
with coding, can you imagine if it was like that for like that situation with dinner and eating? So
I mean, it
everyone
would be nice.
finishes,
Yeah.
yeah, everyone finishes, and then you look your wife right in the eye, or and or your significant other, and say, um, "Oh, that was perfect. I'm gonna go and tidy the heck out of this thing. I'm gonna love the
I'm gonna
kitchen
go
now. Like
format that
this
kitchen.
kit
I'm gonna love
that
it.
that kitchen isn't. It now has like another level,
Yeah.
right? It's like got stairs.
Yeah.
But
Unlike
yeah,
food, programming is like a drug, as you know.
yep,
It becomes an addiction. It's not. I've
yep,
never done drugs, but I
yep,
can imagine that's that feeling.
for
That
sure.
addiction, and then that high when you finally finish that program and everything works and
Yep.
works exactly the way that you want it to work. It's that feeling, man. You know it very
Hmm.
well.
Yeah, like you find that like leading up to the dopamine release of like, okay, I did it, now I have to refactor,
Yeah.
or like like I'm gonna organize it now and I'm happy. Sometimes that period when you're like, if you get stuck and you're trying to you can't find like examples online, you have no one you can call to figure it out. Like, is it just me, or for you does it also feel like you're kind of like bashing your head against a wall? Like it hurts almost like
Yeah.
right in the when you're trying to like you have like tunnel vision. What else is it? What else is
Yeah.
it?
Oh, for sure, man. That
Um,
happens to me all the time. Especially you finish something and what else could you do? Then there's
mhm,
something else, and what else? How can you make it a little bit better? And then
mhm,
there are blind spots in your code all the time, right?
yeah.
And I don't know. I take a little bit of pleasure in finding those blind spots.
Mhm,
I don't know what it is, but I find a little blind spot and I fix it. It just
yeah.
feels like those little release, like you said, those little releases of dopamines, but they come in these little
Yep.
spurts and then
Mhm,
kind of tie it together, and it just feels amazing. And honestly, I wouldn't want to be doing anything else
yeah.
except, you know, as a career, except coding. I love it.
Yeah.
It's the greatest for anybody out there thinking of becoming a developer. Do it. It's the best job.
Definitely. It is. Yes. Speaking of that, like now that they have Chat GPT, sorry, now that they have Dolly too, making a lot of artists feel like,
Hmm.
you know, they're feeling it. There's now some stuff which will, I think Google has something that will generate, you know, music right on the fly,
Oh yeah.
right? It'll just make you a whole song. So that now producers, composers are all like that. So my question is, how long until you think it'll be this year, or when will it be that you'll just go to OpenAI and you'll say, generate website
Hmm.
and mobile apps for this idea and create a company, global or in Canada, and file patents for, and you just enter your credit card and it spins the
Oh
whole thing. Do
goodness.
you like this concept? Do you like this concept? How close are we for not recommending people to get into programming?
No, we're not that close. We're very far from that. The amount of red tape. behind all that you just said
Mm-hmm.
would just be insane.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing to create a song or create a shell of a website or even a website. Everything GPT can do, you can literally go and copy and paste it from somewhere else, right? Like
Very true.
create a
Like Stack
website.
Overflow.
Yeah, you can just copy and paste or whatever code you
Yeah.
look for. Yes, the intricacies are, it'll output those intricacies and it'll save you time in researching, but you will eventually find that information Googling stuff or looking stuff up on the internet.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That being said, it's further development over time. Yes, it's going to probably at some point, you're going to tell it to make an app that can, track satellites. It'll generate an app for you. But as far as creating a business, and that's a little more, there's a lot of red tape in that
Yeah.
industry, right? But technical stuff, yeah, I think we should tell our kids to get into blue collar work, perhaps carpentry or
Mm.
mechanics or something. For
Yeah.
sure, it's going to change. It's going to change the landscape, right?
Mm. Yeah. It is a little bit weird sitting and staring at screens all day.
Yeah,
And then as soon as you're done staring at this screen right now, Rui, you're going to go downstairs, have dinner with your family, and then you're going to stare at a different screen. Could be your phone, could be like a
television.
TV, whatever it is. And then after you've watched that different screen, you'll probably go to bed and look at a different screen.
Yeah, it's pretty
This,
bad, but I
yeah,
typically don't like to stare at screens for too long. I
mm,
read a lot. I read a lot
nice.
of books, man.
On an iPad? Okay, so I almost got you there. Okay, so books, right? Like
Physical
physical.
books. I do.
Yeah,
I
okay,
do
yeah.
read a lot. Every night.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, every night. Every night I read, man. Every single night
Maybe that's why you can
for at
sleep.
least an hour or two. So I don't spend. I mean, the problem is all the time in between. I'm staring at screens too, right? Like all day,
Yep.
and then television, and then you know reruns of old game shows, and a lot of stuff I shouldn't be watching.
It's like how long would it take you to watch all of YouTube,
Dude,
right?
Price is Right,
If it
man.
frozen, oh my god,
What's that guy's name?
you like Bob Barker,
Yeah, Bob Barker.
and then
Happy
it was
Gilmore.
yeah, I know the price is wrong. Yeah, it's like I was those people on Prices Right where they're like, 200, 400, 300, 301 cent, and then the guy just looks over. It's like you, like
Those are
that
like
part,
the
like
hackers of Price is Right.
yeah, it's like, and they always get it, and they're like, oh, good thing I went last.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, oh man, it's a,
What a
I
scam.
don't know, it's a big scam.
Yeah.
It's a casino,
Yeah. So
no free money.
so that's it, man. That's these are some good ideas, and for sure, anybody looking to get into developer work, send me your resume. No, I'm just kidding. Don't send me. Anything. I'm not hiring.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, but yeah, no, it is good. There's tons of people still getting into this stuff, and I feel, in my opinion, I just have this feeling that a lot of developers are feeling that, oh shoot, Chat GPT, right?
Yeah.
Should I be worried, kind of stuff. There was a colleague of mine asked for it. It's like, hey, have you had any experience programming against this particular Google API,
Yeah.
right? And I sent him, oh yeah, this is a code snippet, right, against this. I think it was like Google Maps API, or I can't remember, because Google has a bunch of them,
Yeah.
right? Bunch of APIs, and he's such an awesome guy. Like, he's like, I would hang out with them, like, one of those awesome dudes, like work aside, programming aside, just
Yeah.
real chill dude. And he's like, wow, this is so good. You should put it in Stack Overflow. And I was like, thanks, man. Maybe I will. I didn't have the heart to tell him at the time. I was like, and then it ate at me, and I had to message him and be like, hey, by the way,
Yeah.
ChatGPT. He's like, what?
Yeah. No, honestly, man, I think that the media has blown it out of proportion as in typical fashion.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think we have to worry for another. What do you think? 30 years?
Yeah, I think it's our kids' problem.
Yeah, it's our kids' problem. We're going to retire,
Yeah.
using whatever we use. PHP, right? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it's just like pure C++. It's like unsafe memory access. Like, there's so much nice things about. I'm not sure if it's C++ or, well, the low level languages where
Mhm.
you can really get into hot water of like accessing like a memory allocation that's
Yeah.
already, in flight, or like some kind of unsafe
Right.
thing where like C sharp is, it protects you from all that.
Right.
It's like, it's like it's like the world is on fire,
Hmm.
right? And C sharp is like a nice bus that you're on. And the driver is like guy from Microsoft. He's like, you like the curly braces? And then all the kids are like, yeah, like, you know what I mean? Like it's, but it's kind of nice because as these higher and higher levels of like abstractions over whatever it compiles down to, like
Yeah.
assembly or whatever, like of course it's going to get more and more easier to write. Like why create another level higher?
Yeah.
Like I'm not sure if have you seen the language Kotlin?
No. Oh, Kotlin, right? That's
Yeah.
Google's language, right? It's the is it Java replacement?
Yeah, I don't know. I know that it's like either Java based or Java replacement,
Hmm.
or just a better way or an easier way of writing that stuff. But
Yeah.
it really like for I feel like if there's someone out there that loves um, C sharp
Hmm.
and they're looking for like a mobile native kind of language
Yeah.
for Android, or whatever it is, like that's it's a really elegant language
Hmm.
if you look at some of the code examples.
Yeah.
um, but it's kind of interesting to think of like when we do this, we do it in our own little um, C sharp or VB or whatever, the Microsoft bubble,
Yeah.
right? Or a PHP, or but then you kind of almost don't have the context of like, what is this like to write this in Go
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
whatever it is, right? But it's kind of interesting to like when you look at how, I'm sure Microsoft does that too, where if they're implementing a feature,
Hmm.
they probably go around and see, all right, who's got the best like way of doing this, and
Right.
then it's almost best to be last in that regard.
Yeah.
What do you
Yeah.
think?
No, I think that's for sure. That makes sense because you get to pick, right? You get to pick which one's a better solution and implement it, right? Um, Microsoft is really good at doing that, as you know, right? That's why
Right.
they're so successful.
Yeah.
But no, it's good. I think it's good that they do that, right? Good for the end user and good for the developer and people
Mhm.
using their tools, right? We need
Yep.
that built upon, or that that strong foundation to build, right? Or for them, they need the strong foundation to build on for us to have a strong foundation and something to work
Yeah.
with, right? But
Yep.
yeah, man, Microsoft's, I don't know, man. People talk a lot about, put them down, but they're doing amazing stuff when it comes to developer or developing and
Yeah.
environments.
It's almost
I
like they
lost my train
spend
of
a
thought
lot.
with that whole
Yeah, fair
that whole
enough. It's almost like
spiel.
they spend a lot of their time just trying to re um, establish respect in the community, right? Because of what happened in the past, they have a lot of people like, oh no, that's Microsoft, that's corporate, that's not open source. There's some people I still believe that don't know that Microsoft's .NET's open source and all that stuff. They just think it's all
Yeah.
Windows,
You know,
and the things like sorry,
no, no, go
go
on.
ahead.
I'm sorry, I interrupted.
I was going to say the things like Maui, we just like write
Yes, yes,
something in Blazor and it just publishes 6 different apps.
yeah,
Like
that's amazing.
incredible. Yeah.
No, I do love the way they do things. And honestly, man, end of the day, I don't know. Love is such a strong word. Maybe I don't love it. I love other things, but not Microsoft per se. But um, I'd like you got to use the right tool for the job, man. My opinion is know everything, right, and use everything to your advantage when it comes to this. This in this line of work, use everything to your advantage. Use your Microsoft, use your PHP, and whatever Google, Go, Kotlin, and Java, whatever you can use it. That is my my stance on that.
So you do a bunch of work in other languages, right? And I think more so than I. Um, are you finding that when you see like examples of like any other language other than C sharp, or when you look at a project like a PHP project or any other web project,
Yeah.
are you finding that code base in terms of technical debt is like much higher on the Microsoft's side, in terms of like how many projects there are,
Yeah.
or like what do you think? Like, do you think that based on what you're developing in now, or the languages that you see, like
Hmm.
are they is it easy to get sucked into you know that create a new file, create a new project, create a new, like everything's new.
Yeah, no, I think Microsoft does have a huge footprint when it comes to code. I guess a code footprint, a code print. It's huge,
Yeah.
and compared to like other languages, like PHP, for example, has a. I think they're it doesn't do the same things. PHP is has a lot less functionality than like a .NET, but on a whole, I think it's a lot more. I guess has a lot less code print than Microsoft.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think Microsoft's just it's a behemoth, right? So
Mhm.
yeah, I think PHP is a little bit easier, and obviously scripting languages are easier, but um, yeah, Java, and C# are kind of the same thing. I worked a lot in obviously VBA and VB, and that is a little more condensed than C#. Um, and I think Microsoft wants to mimic VB, right? They want to kind of switch
Yeah.
or mimic
I,
VB
I've
and
noticed,
C#, right?
I've noticed that where,
Like remove the curly braces and stuff like
yeah, a
that.
lot, the curly braces are coming off a lot
Yeah.
lately with new C# versions, and they're using things like and not,
Yes,
and
exactly.
kind of real language. Those are the features I love from like VB.net, VB,
Yeah.
VBA is like, it's just like kind of easy to read.
Hmm.
And, with the curly braces off, sometimes it's like, you can't really tell like where this is going.
Yeah.
Like, but then you have things like crazy where like YAML, where like an extra space, it just doesn't compile, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Because it's actually, it will mean something completely different if
Right.
there's an extra space,
Like
or
Python,
whatnot.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Python's like that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Python's like
have you programmed in F sharp?
no, I haven't. That was no, I never actually touched that or saw the code. Not sure what it looks
Is
like.
it's F is for functional. I've never programmed in it, but I wonder if it's like Python, or like is Python a lot of like, is it a lot of functional?
I think Python is what does Python remind me of? It reminds me of C. Plain old C, man.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know, or maybe C++, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's indentation. Obviously,
Matters.
yeah, it matters. There's another programming language that I programmed in. Can't remember off the top of my head, but it was crappy. I shouldn't say that.
Right.
It was during my college, and we used it for statistics, the stats class. It was called R. Yeah, R.
Right. Yeah.
And that was
That's a bit weird, right?
it was weird, man. But no, I saw a video on this programming language called Malborg, right? It was such a cool video, and it's a crazy language. And one day I'll learn it. One day.
Oh,
I mean,
man,
it's just it interests me. I don't know what it is about it.
I watched that video of it. It's like I watched it like a couple times. I didn't know what was going on, and then I went back to it to like watch it like a third time, and I was like, "Oh, you made this video." I didn't realize it was just like not that I'm saying like it's your stuff is recognizable. Like it's like, oh, this is definitely a Rui video.
Yeah.
It was just it just hit me on this weird like we're in the Matrix level.
Yeah, it was very abstract, and yeah, my face wasn't in it, but
right. Fair enough.
Yeah,
it's a weird kind of
talk
cool
about
language.
Condensed code. That would be the opposite of anything normal or condensed.
Yeah, I think there's also was it Fireship did like it was a walkthrough on FUKT or something.
Oh,
it was
I
a
think I remember
language
that
where
one,
where it's like it's just so hard to write. Well, one guy made it as like okay, I'll make this thing. It's like it's like so deliberately okay, let's make something go viral. Let's make a language of like, is it better, more fast, easier? Like, no, everything's way harder. That was the whole effort as a joke kind of thing.
Yeah,
but yeah, if it's on Fireship, then it made it, man. It's prime time.
Absolutely, man. Let's make it on Fireship, man. Let's create something crazy.
Yeah, it's like Microsoft kind of, they were all excited on one of the last community stand-ups like a couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
they were talking about how when Fireship did Blazor
Hmm.
as a SPA framework,
Yeah.
and it was they like lost they're like, oh, they're doing it right. And that was kind of big for them to be kind of recognized in that space, because as you know, Fireship, he's like, more trendy modern SPA frameworks,
Yeah.
JavaScript libraries, all that up and coming stuff.
Hmm.
And to be kind of put in there, like we're not, I mean, there's trickles of Blazor in his stuff, but not as much as everything else that's
Right.
out there. But yeah, so I do feel that Microsoft's looking at like all of those different JavaScript SPA frameworks that Fireship, covers, and like, oh, what cool features can we put in there?
Yeah.
Right.
Cool.
But I mean, the one thing about the code, getting back to code minimalism,
Yeah.
is that's one thing I truly feel that, Blazor shines on with Microsoft, is that, before, or not before, like essentially if you have, let's say, a React project, and let's say you have a .NET Core Open API Swagger, set of API controllers, or minimal APIs, then you can use like NSwag or some kind of source code generator to generate a TypeScript client
Hmm.
for the React front end,
Yeah.
right? So that in Blazor you can still do. It'll just generate the C# one. That will also generate like models and DTOs in TypeScript,
Hmm.
right? But with Blazor, because you can have like a shared project between the API and the front end,
Yeah.
and just put your DTOs in it, and it's just all C#, meaning that you don't have to take the C# and transcompile it down to TypeScript,
Hmm.
and then like, there's no serialization, so to speak,
Yeah.
like conceptually, because like everything, well, I guess everything's like JSON, so across the wire in HTTP 1 and 2.
Hmm.
um, so like, if you don't want to necessarily serialize it a different way and have like variability in serialization, and
Yeah.
if you, then the other cool thing is like, if you have a shared project between your front end and your back end in Blazor, then let's say you have a company DTO with a company name and a company type.
Yeah.
If you wanted to add another property on there, like company icon class, um, let's say it's like a view model or something,
Hmm.
as soon as you add it to that shared project, they both get the benefit.
Yeah.
So the back end could populate it, or the front end could populate it, whatever.
Hmm.
But it's just kind of nice because it's all C#.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. That's good. Well, what time is it? Are we on time?
Yes.
Are we
Yeah, it's pretty good.
what do we do? What
So
I can't see a timestamp anywhere.
42 minutes.
Oh
So
wow.
that's good for now. So basically, try to do this once a week, and kind of going over, like, really, what are we going to go over? What are the 4 things that Codeplay, anyone watching this first episode, it's like, hey, do I continue watching?
Yeah.
What else are these guys going to talk
All
about?
right. So basically our topics for this show are as follows. We are going to speak about programming, coding in general, which we did today, and various technical topics, not limited to programming. I mean, we could talk about artificial intelligence. It's a whole gambit of technical aspects of society. We will talk about. We'll talk about culture, origin of words, sociological impact of language and mannerisms. We're also going to talk about games, video games, in-game philosophy, lore, architecture of video games, and the hardware that plays them. Another topic would be pharmacology. We're going to talk about genetics, routine diets, supplements, toxins recovery, and mental health. So these are the wide range of topics we're going to speak about and delve into them deeply for the hour that we have together. Right. And the
For
technology
example,
part plays in all of them as well.
yes, exactly. So if there's a technology change, the entertainment will change. If there's a health change, then potentially technology will all
Right.
change, right? They're all kind of like a Venn diagram
Yeah.
of this podcast. Maybe that's should be the
That's what we're,
if you're
we're going to create next, a Venn diagram.
yeah. Thanks everyone. See you next time.
Thanks, everybody. See you next time.